All right, well, welcome to everybody to this Monday briefing from the National Weather Service office here in Wakefield, Virginia. My name is Jeff Orrock, and I'll be walking through the briefing today, really covering the weather of going through most of this week and into parts of the holiday weekend. So one thing I want to mention right out of the gate is the guys are actually in New Kent and Providence Forge this morning installing the antenna and the cabling. So we're going to have a new NOAA weather radio site come online. It's located in Providence Forge, Virginia. The frequency there is going to be at 162.500 megahertz. So this is a new weather radio site going in between, I guess, Richmond, we'll call it, and a driver down towards Norfolk. So it's really filling a gap. So folks in that area, we definitely want folks to start listening and kind of tuning in. I'm going to share with you guys a broadcast map. So this is all theoretical, and I think it's probably a little bit on the optimistic side, but you kind of see the area here that's going to be covered by this new NOAA weather radio. So the goal here really is to cover especially 64. We start losing signal in the current scheme around Williamsburg, and Toano doesn't have much of a weather radio signal. Neither does Lenexa or up towards the eastern parts of New Kent. So the new site is really going to be filling in this gap along 64, which is right now covered by Richmond, and you have, of course, driver down here to the south. So this fills that gap. Going north, we have the Heatsville NOAA weather radio in the north. So just a little bit of a gap here. So it's been great to partner with the folks there at New Kent. This is a pretty good size coverage area here, and we'll be sending out a press release tomorrow, kind of getting into more details of exactly what counties we're going to have on here. It will be in a 30-day trial. So you notice that listed here where we mentioned it's a 30-day trial here for the NOAA weather radio. As we just kind of make sure we got the signal coverage, we'll drive around, look at the footprint of the transmitter, but we are going to have forecasts and warnings being played across the station while it's in its test mode. And you see here the counties and cities right now, as of right this minute, we plan on covering with forecasts and warnings. So very exciting. If you have any questions or comments, email me. If you're out there kind of measuring the signal or you're just tuning into it in any of these areas, please let me know what you're hearing. And like I said, I think it's going to be turned on later today. And once we turn it on, we're planning on leaving it on unless we have to take it up and down, do a few tweaks. But we're planning on leaving it on and letting it broadcast as soon as we get everything hooked up, hopefully by later today. All right, so just the highlights for this week. Really, it's going to be dry for most of the week, seasonable temperatures. So at least for the beginning part of this week, it's going to be quieter than what it has been in the past after a fairly, dreary weekend, especially on Saturday. We do see chances of rain returning late Thursday and Friday, so we'll talk about that as a cold front pushes through the area. And we are dealing with some elevated tides, basically just running right around. We call it nuisance flooding, or just kind of flooding some of the real shallow, low-lying areas right along the waterfront as the tides continue to run a little bit elevated, continued, east to northeast flow, kind of keeping that water in the bay a little bit, and even quiet on the marine side. We're basically sub-small craft advisory conditions expected, really through most of this week. So kind of looking at the fronts, I'll go ahead and pull WPC's webpage over here so we can kind of step through it. This Monday, high pressure really in control of our weather. A little bit of a weak east or northeast flow here this morning, but nothing that's a big deal. High pressure this afternoon. Getting into this evening, you see it's really holding on. Even into Tuesday, again, it's really nice weather. Temperatures are going to be warming up. High pressure really anchored in. As you get into Wednesday, you do start to see the high pressure starting to slide a little bit east. Still going to be great weather for us. The winds will start to become a little more from the south as we get that clockwise flow around the high, change in our wind direction. You do see the cold front coming across parts of the Midwest into the higher river valley. So that's going to be our next weather maker. By the time you get into Thursday morning, you do see that front starting to make its way into West Virginia. And now we'll have more of a southerly or southwesterly flow. Winds may pick up a little bit on Thursday, nothing too strong, may just be a little bit more breezy as those southwest winds pick up ahead of the front. And it does start to approach the mountains later in the day. Notice here by Friday morning, it takes its time. It's just now really getting across central Virginia and into southeast Virginia by Friday morning. So it's not a fast-moving front by any means. I'm going to take a little while to get across the mountains. So a good bit of Thursday might remain dry, actually, and then we see more scattered showers and storms, during Thursday afternoon, especially Thursday evening and Thursday night as the front comes through. And then Friday, you really kind of see it just moving very slowly across the area. And in fact, on Saturday, it's really kind of just getting hung up. And now you see maybe a wave of low pressure trying to form. This is the big question for the weekend. What really happens with this front and any kind of wave of low pressure that might develop. Here it looks like it may just kind of push back through Saturday into Sunday. The bottom line is it looks nice for most this week. The weekend's kind of a question mark for the holiday weekend because it just depends upon what this front does, where it hangs up, and what goes on with it. So maybe a little bit unsettled for the weekend. Not a washout, but it could be a little bit unsettled as we push into the weekend. But nice for most of this week. So that's nice. The dry conditions here for a little while. No risk of severe weather the next 3 days, so that's not going to be an issue. Maybe a few thunderstorms there in the mountains as the front approaches into west of West Virginia on Wednesday. May see a few little thunderstorms pop up in the mountains. That's why you see the area in green here. Better chance really for most of our area for showers and maybe even a thunderstorm is really going to be late Thursday night and into Friday morning. So here's the rainfall on Monday through Wednesday. Again, looks pretty dry across most of the Commonwealth. But then you get into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, definitely start to see more rain. And I think the bulk of this rainfall accumulation that you're seeing here is really going to be Thursday night and into Friday. And then after that, it probably becomes more hit and miss, off and on, maybe scattered showers, maybe a thunderstorm or two, for the weekend, but mostly just scattered showers. So I think the bulk of this is really going to be that Thursday night into Friday morning where you see this rainfall here. But again, we are expecting some scattered showers, maybe a little bit of rain for the weekend as well. So kind of breaking it down, temperatures, really pretty nice. A little bit cooler today behind that front that came through over the weekend. But you see the warming trend by the time you get into midweek. Some really warm temperatures here, getting well up into the mid to upper 80s, maybe even approaching 90 for most places, except Ocean City, where you have that flow in off the colder water. But really getting warm as we get into later this week. And even into Friday, notice, with that front kind of hanging up across the area, temperatures are still pretty warm. It does maybe cool off a teeny bit for the weekend, but we'll talk more about the weekend when we do the Thursday briefing, kind of what we're thinking about temperature-wise for the weekend. And again, those chances of rain, we really don't have much chance of rain on Thursday until really later in the afternoon and evening. That's when your rain chances really go up. So basically Thursday evening into basically Thursday night. And then notice how Friday we have a little bit of a dip in the chance of rain. But then Friday afternoon with that front stalling, kind of getting into the area, maybe starting to get scattered showers and maybe even a rumble of thunder Friday afternoon. And that may be the way things play out for a lot of the weekend, but we'll see. But see, we're pretty much dry until we really get into some, I'd say late Thursday afternoon into Thursday evening for most of us. Shifting gears on the marine side, basically going to be fairly quiet. No small craft advisory conditions expected. We don't even have a low probability. So maybe some gusty winds of maybe 15 knots. It could gust up to 20 on the ocean later on, but really nothing going on as far as any kind of impactful weather on the marine side. So basically you see here just the chances of getting winds of maybe gusting up to about 20 knots on the ocean, maybe 15 knots on the bay. So you can see it for the east wind today, maybe a little bit of 15 to 20 knots of wind tomorrow, 15 knots on the bay. But you don't see anything very strong. You don't see anything getting into small craft conditions, which would be orange. So, maybe a little bit of a breeze, but nothing that's going to be impactful. So this is our peak winds over the next 72 hours. So about maybe 17 knots on the bay, maybe getting up a peak wind of 20 knots on the water. This is our peak gust. So nothing too extreme. Waves about 1 to 2 feet on the bay, maybe about 3, especially 4 feet as you get a little further offshore with that easterly flow. But nothing really too bad. This is just showing you the wind direction and wind speed. So we do keep that onshore flow, that northeast wind at all of our marine sites. Notice how it continues really into today, into tomorrow. Eventually the winds do start to become more southerly, especially as you get into Tuesday night and early Wednesday, get more of that south wind. So that continued onshore flow, especially, here around 15 knots or so, gusting up to maybe, 20 knots, that's keeping the rip currents a little bumped up. And so that's why we have that. We'll talk about rip currents here in a second. But this is playing with our rip currents a little bit. But you do notice the winds are weaker for Tuesday than they are for today. So that should improve some of the beach conditions. And then the southerly winds increase ahead of that front, especially Wednesday night and Thursday, getting up to about maybe 10 to 15 knots, gusting up to maybe about 20, 25 knots or so potentially. But that's that wind ahead of that front as the winds come south and the front comes through really Thursday night, really early Friday morning. So that a little bit beyond the forecast here, you see that front will push in. Just looking at the waves, nothing too major here. Again, we just kind of mentioned, basically maybe 3 to 4 feet offshore. And for the most part, everybody else is running around 1 to 2 feet, with maybe about 3 feet in the coastal waters. Tidal flooding, tides are continuing to run elevated just about everywhere with that continued onshore flow, getting in some high tide cycle. So pretty much this is just, we call it nuisance flooding, maybe a half foot of inundation, some flooding right along the waterfront, but nothing really causing us any issues. Really everywhere today we could see some of that really low end tidal flooding, and kind of lingers in a little bit here for Tuesday, and then maybe the upper bay kind of hangs on to a little bit of that nuisance flooding for Wednesday, and then it's pretty much gone come Thursday. We get that south wind and things should start to improve. We'll see how that plays out, but nothing too impactful, just maybe some nuisance tidal flooding here over the next couple of days. Getting back to our rip currents, with that onshore flow, we do have the high risk of rip currents, basically Virginia Beach down to Sandbridge and Corolla, with that northeast and east wind keeping the waves up a little bit higher down south. Increased threat further to the north, so rip current's still a little bit of an issue today. Tomorrow, it does look like things improve a little bit. So up north, we think the rip current threat's going to be low. It could approach moderate, but we think it's going to be a little bit better surf height, maybe 2 feet, 2 to 3 feet, and probably going to be more of a solid 3 feet when you get down towards Virginia Beach and down to Corolla. Surf height may hang on a little bit higher, a little bit longer, so we still have that increased threat tomorrow. Water temperatures are still cold out there. Some folks have asked. So it is pretty cold for swimming. Upper 50s still at Ocean City, and Virginia Beach and Corolla have actually dropped into the upper 50s to around 60. So we did see temperatures, a bit warmer earlier this year when we had that warm spell. When we started to see water temperatures, jumping up maybe into the mid 60s or so, but they've cooled off a little bit, even down south with some of the cooler weather. And this is about normal. We look at the curves, and this is right around what we expect for water temperatures this time of year. Generally in the upper 50s up north, and maybe I'd say lower 60s, maybe even mid 60s down south. And so we should see a warming trend in the sea surface temperatures here, though, over the next couple of weeks. Wednesday and Thursday looks like a low threat looking ahead. Get that southerly wind, so that's not going to be as much of an issue. Breaking waves about maybe 2 feet. So it looks like that rip current threat's going to stay a little bit lower for a good part of this week once things start to calm down. And that's really going to be about it. Looking ahead to next week, a slight signal that we may be above normal temperatures, and a slight signal that we may see above normal precipitation. So kind of continuing with this pattern that we've been seeing. The good news is looks like we will see maybe a warming trend and maybe stay normal to slightly above normal temperature-wise, even though it's still going to be unsettled, I think, late weekend, and maybe early next week, where the weather stays a little bit unsettled for us.